microphones. All right. I have 6:20 on my time. I have the public hearing for amending the city comprehensive plan for parcel number 6022 at 6:20 PM.
Please take notice that the Plan Commission for the City of Portage will conduct a public hearing on Monday, June 16th, 2025 at 6:20 PM at the Portage Municipal Building, 115 West Pleasant Street, Portage, Wisconsin, to consider a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan originally adopted on February 27th, 2020. The purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comments on the proposed comprehensive plan amendment regarding the land use designation. The proposed hearing amendment modifies the comprehensive plan for the following property to more accurately reflect the current and future land uses. Parcel ID number 6022, existing use is undeveloped. The current future land use designation under the comprehensive plan is single-family residential. The proposed future land use designation is multifamily residential. During the public hearing, the public is invited to speak on the proposed plan amendment. Written comments may be submitted to the Director of Business Development and Planning until 4:30, Monday, June 9th, 2025, and shall become part of the record. Interested parties may email and contact Steve Sobiak, Director of Business Development and Planning, with any questions. The public hearing shall be closed when all interested parties in attendance have had an opportunity to offer comment. Dated this 22nd day of May, 2025. Stephen Sobiak, Director of Business Development, Planning and Zoning. And so anyone who would like to speak on this, both public hearings pertain basically to the rezoning of parcel number 6022. So if you're here to testify for or against, you can make a choice of speaking at either this one or the hearing at 6:25, or if you would like to speak at both. If you did register for the public comment and you want to speak on these, you should speak at these public hearings at 6:20 and 6:25. You don't have to wait for the public comment section. So if anyone would like to speak, feel free to come up to the microphone and address the Plan Commission.
I was say I got Mary. I do have your form first, so if you'd like to come and you can speak in the microphone, and you have 5 minutes.
I am a recent, well, I've lived in Portage for 5 years, but a recent homeowner. And to tell you the truth, I'm not even positive I know which parcel this is. So it would be really nice if we had a picture of that.
Sure, we can do that.
Because I am late coming to this information.
Here we go. So if you know where Mud Lake is, it's been renamed Duck Lake. This is Hartle Street, and basically right at the intersection of Albert Street and Hartle Street, right here is going to be the entranceway to the proposed development. So this has been reconfigured by CSM with this past year to one parcel. The northernmost borders on this parcel owned by the city, and then basically there are 3 homes here, and then this comes out to Dorothy Drive here. The city owns this parcel. So it's all this area right in here north of the intersection of Hartle Street and East Albert Street. That's just east of Duck Lake. So hopefully that helps.
That does help. And it is a different spot than I was picturing.
Oh, okay.
However, it does still appear to be in a sensitive area where possibly wetlands before it was it filled or?
No, the wetland delineation is pretty much up here. This parcel was a duck hunting reservoir and reserve 50, 75, 100 years ago, and it was deeded back to the city about 5 years ago. And so there are some wetlands up on this parcel, but this has been delineated so there are no wetlands, there will be no building on wetlands. There will be certainly a setback as established by the DNR to be
All right. Well, I hope so, because I don't know if it was, when you said it was designated undeveloped, it was designated to stay undeveloped in previous comprehensive plans?
The reason it really wasn't developed is it was like 6 or 8 or 10 different parcels. And it was just undergrowth and it was infill. And, you know, Mr. Grothman, I'm gonna give Mr. Jim Grothman the credit. He saw the vision and the potential for development for residential housing. And so he did all of the work. And so if you will hear from him later today, I'm sure, and he can give you a much better synopsis of how this parcel came to be and the due diligence that he did to ensure that we are not building on wetlands.
All right. Okay, I hope that's the case, because I think water is a huge issue. Managing water is a huge issue here for me as a homeowner, and I hope for the entire city. It still appears to me that it's pretty close to what, I drive by there quite regularly, and pretty wet there. So I hope you've done your due diligence on wetland sensitivity and just common sense on what we should or should not be building on, especially considering the types of rains we've been having. And I also hope that we're sensitive to the current homeowners who may not want a large development there. It's already zoned for single family, I understand. And I'm guessing that's plenty. Thank you.
You can go up to the, yep. Yep.
Please state your name and address for the record.
So my name's Melissa Kohler. I live at 821 Dorothy Drive. I actually was born and raised in Portage, so I've been here my whole life. I have concerns with the rezoning for the apartment complex. So building an apartment complex will disrupt our community's single-family zoning intent. The proposed apartment building conflicts with the existing zoning and community plan, which was designed to preserve the low-density residential nature of our neighborhood. The proposed apartment building is out of scale with the surroundings. This building would visually and physically dominate the area, clashing with scale, aesthetic, and character of nearby single-family homes. The proposed apartment building will threaten sensitive wildlife habitats. The marsh is a delicate ecosystem that supports a variety of birds, amphibians, animals, and plant species. The building will increase noise, pollution, and human presence could permanently disrupt this habitat. The proposed apartment building increases the risk of water runoff and pollution. Increased pavement and development will lead to more stormwater runoff by changing the water flow patterns, which will impact water levels, drainage, and groundwater, recharge, which are crucial for marsh function. This may introduce pollutants into the marsh, harming wildlife and degrading water quality. The proposed apartment building will create a loss of green buffer zones. The area near the marsh often serves as a crucial buffer that protects the wetlands from encroachment. Removing it for development undermines the long-term conservation goals. The proposed apartment building will increase traffic on residential streets significantly. The roads were not designed for high-volume traffic, which will create congestion and potential safety risks. This may elevate risks to children, cyclists, and pedestrians in our quiet neighborhood. The proposed apartment building will overburden utilities and services like higher density living. This could place a strain on local infrastructure like water, sewage, and emergency services that were not designed for multi-unit dwellings. The proposed apartment building drives potential decreases in property values. This abrupt change in density and aesthetics can negatively affect home values in the surrounding area, especially for those adjacent to the project. The proposed apartment building will cause loss of community cohesion. Neighborhoods with a strong single-family identity often share traditions and community ties that may be weakened by incompatible development. My family has lived in our home on Dorothy Drive for 5 years, and our home has flooded multiple times. And there's nothing that the city has been able to assist us with. It's kind of just our problem. And the proposed apartment building will make the flooding in our community worse and will force many of us to leave. And if I may, because I walk this road and these days with my daughter, we're in the second house here, and this is all marsh right here. It goes all the way up to the balcony, so any of those important information, just make sure you have the location.
Any others who would like to speak on this matter can come up to the podium at this time. Please state your name and address for the record.
Micah Grosskreutz, I'm at 818 Dorothy Drive, and my concern from this property is just the water. I mean, I have pictures of the water running through my backyard, and I am right, there's the lot in between the 2,000, but all the water is coming from that property, and it's going to increase if we make it denser. It's just gonna have more water in that marsh. It's flooding onto New Pinery as it is, and we can't stop that flooding. If we add to it, take away any of that land, it's just gonna increase flooding.
Any others who would like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Jacob Harris. I live at 506 Houston Street. Melissa is actually my neighbor, so I live right above her. This corner lot here, so I can attest to the fact that it is what I see cattails from my window. Kind of getting into what I wrote down. Also, I think something Melissa wanted to say was that in the letter that we received, we were not informed of having our notes and things to the record by the 9th. If there's something that we could do for that, I know I would appreciate that opportunity to have it added to the record.
We can do that, absolutely.
thank you.
And the rezoning does go to the city council as well, so what we can
Okay.
do is include that, and the city council, when they vote, will have that record as well. Go for
Okay,
it.
perfect, thank you. So I am here on behalf of many residents who are deeply concerned about the proposal to rezone the marsh area to allow apartment development. I urge you not only to sorry, I'm bad at public speaking. Reject this rezoning, but to take it a step further and designate this land as non-buildable to protect it permanently. For one, the marsh is a critical wildlife habitat. The marsh is home to deer, foxes, cranes, and many other species that depend on this shrinking ecosystem for shelter and survival. As development expands around us, places like this are becoming rarer. To replace it with pavement and buildings would not only destroy habitat, but damage the ecological balance of our community. Second, the marsh protects us from flooding. Our homes are already struggling with water. Even with 2 sump pumps running 24/7 in my home, our basement did have water in it regardless last summer, and I am afraid that may happen again this week yet with more rain to come. And as Melissa stated, that's on us as homeowners. I live right across the road from the marsh, and it's clear the only reason things aren't worse is because the marshland and its plant life absorb water that would otherwise flood our homes. Remove that and you guarantee more water, more damage, and more cost for homeowners. 3, new buildings will struggle even more. The water table is higher closer to the marsh. New buildings would be at even greater risk of water intrusion, foundation instability, and structural decay. We've seen this scenario unfold in other Wisconsin communities. Old Sauk Road in Madison, residents sued the city over stormwater concerns from a nearby apartment complex. Fitchburg and Lake Wabeesa, the Wisconsin DNR scaled back a development proposal due to wetland damage and downstream water risk. And in River Hills, a wetland area development was halted due to overwhelming community opposition over flooding and habitat loss. These aren't isolated incidents. There's many across the U.S. They are examples of what happens when we ignore the science and build where nature tells us not to. 4, loss of natural beauty and community value. We don't just live near the marsh, we treasure it. It's a peaceful, untouched landscape that brings us joy and a sense of connection to nature. It's not an eyesore, it is an asset. Replacing it with a dense apartment complex would irreversibly change the character of our neighborhood. I would like this land to be designated as non-buildable, given the risks, flooding, soil instability, ecological damage, and inevitable community pushback. This land should not just remain as is, it should be officially designated non-buildable. The only way to ensure future developers don't bring this proposal back in a few years under a different name.
You have one minute left on your public comment period.
My conclusion, the marsh protects us, it nurtures our wildlife, and it defines our neighborhood. To destroy it for long-term gain would be a long-term mistake. The only responsible path forward is to reject rezoning and designate the area as non-buildable conservation land. Thank you for your time and for considering the lasting impact of this decision on our homes, our environment, and our future. One thing I did want to add to that I didn't get to was the fact that I have previously been a wildland firefighter, and the closer you put homes to that marsh, the more in danger they are of burning down if that marsh sets on fire. It's a serious risk that I even think of now, being across the street with a clear buffer there.
Thank
from
you.
my home. Thank you.
Any others who would like to make a public comment can do so at this time. Last call for public comment. Alrighty, Steve?
Our second public hearing will commence shortly after I read the public hearing statement. Please take notice that the Plan Commission of the City of Portage will consider the granting of a zoning amendment for parcel number 6022, City of Portage, Columbia County, Wisconsin, for pre-3 applicant. A public hearing will be held June 16th, 2025 at 6:25 PM at the Portage Municipal Building, 115 West Pleasant Street, to rezone the subject property from RT traditional neighborhood zoning to R5 large-scale multifamily zoning district. All interested persons may appear in person or by their attorney or agent for the purposes of offering such proof in support of their position opposing or endorsing the granting of this rezoning to said property dated this 22nd day of May, 2025. Stephen Sobiak, Director of Business Development. So if anybody would like to speak for or against this rezoning, feel free to come up with the microphone.
Mary Zanker, 128 East Franklin. Might as well start it off again. We've just heard from these people that water is a problem in that area. And I suspect it never should have been zoned residential at all. It should have been, as the gentleman said, unbuildable. I don't think that's anything that can be solved here. However, I think we should mitigate the damage and definitely not change it to multifamily. It would require much more concrete, much less drainage. I think at this point, we just have to try and mitigate the damages and, I don't know, hope he doesn't build, I guess. But I think that's a big mistake. We need our wetlands, not just because of the individuals who live near there, but for the rest of the community. It's a really important part of keeping our city in good shape, safe, and sustainable. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify and speak for or against this rezoning petition? This will be the last call. Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against this rezoning petition for the Plan Commission? If not, we will declare the public hearing portion of this closed.
Alrighty then, on to the regular meeting at 6:30 PM. Mr. Sobiek, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Feeney.
Here.
Egan.
Here.
Knockreiner. Voss.
Here.
Schneider is excused. Sulik is excused, and Paul is excused. We do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Number 2, public comment. If anyone has any other words that they would like to say at this time, you can comment. Hearing none. Number 3, approval of minutes from previous meeting.
Having read, I'd make the motion to approve as presented.
Knockreiner? Second. Call the roll, please.
Feeney.
Yes.
Egan.
Aye.
Knockreiner. Voss.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 4, discussion and possible action on amending the city comprehensive plan parcel number 6022.
So, an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan is required with the proposed zoning map amendment application that has been submitted for parcel number 6022 at the intersection of East Albert Street and East Hartle Street. If approved, this would facilitate rezoning the above referenced parcel from RT small, single, and two-family residential to R5, large-scale multifamily residential. This would allow development of Premier Portage Preserve, which has submitted a preliminary 84-unit, 7-building apartment development as proposed by Pre3, the developer. The amendment to the comprehensive plan would change the designated future land use for this parcel from the current zoning RT single and two-family residential to multifamily residential to accurately reflect this proposed zoning change. Staff recommend approval of the proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. I know we had a number of comments relating to the water regarding that site. But tonight's obviously meeting and the action item is obviously just for the rezoning and the change to the comprehensive plan. We'll have another kick at the cat with this as far as the site plan is concerned, where we will require the developer to provide us a site-specific stormwater management plan because 1 acre or more is being developed as part of this property, which will require some of that water detention or retention, runoff control, and suspended solids reduction. The delineated wetland is depicted on the plan set. That may differ from some of the cattails that we see out there. In the eyes of the DNR, it goes down to that actual wetland delineation, which does require a 10 to 30-foot setback because it is a less susceptible wetland as opposed to the 75-foot setback if it were highly susceptible. Strand Engineering, we have on retainer to review that stormwater management plan. We are going back and forth with the design engineer on that. So I do feel that they will provide a stormwater management plan that meets the city's requirements, which are actually more stringent than those of the DNR. Just wanted to on those items.
Yeah, we have no desire to fill in wetland. And to my understanding, we are not going to be building in wetland because that is a concern. Wetlands are important for flood control. And so we are not planning on, or we wouldn't allow filling in those wetlands, to my knowledge.
Correct.
I appreciate Phil's comments and understand, but with the intent of the comprehensive plan changing for the, albeit not approved, but plan at hand and hearing the concerns. Steve, or anybody that can answer this, it's, the property's 16.39 acres, is proposed 84 units. Under the current small single family, how many units could fit on there under its current zoning?
In excess of 50.
Okay.
Say between 50 and 60. So I will say that we do not have a final plan. We thought we had a final site plan that was going to come before us tonight, and that was for 84 units. I think there's a possibility, although I don't want to speak for the developer, it could be reduced to 72. I will say that when the original plan for the reserve at Duck Lake that was proposed by Mr. Grothman and the subsequent preliminary plat, that showed 50 units for this entire parcel. So this proposal for this development is increasing slightly from 50 units to between 72 and 84 units.
So,
Give you a better idea.
right, so 50 single-family units with road access to all versus somewhere around 84 units split between 6 buildings or less.
And I should also add that RT zoning also allows duplexes. So even though Mr. Grothman's, although he did not submit a final site plan, so it's entirely possible that Mr. Grothman, would have submitted a plan that could have included multifamily, that could have included two-family, and the two-family would have been allowed under the current zoning RT. So I don't think it's entirely accurate to say it was previously rezoned as single-family, because it would allow duplexes under RT traditional zoning.
Right. RT small single. I guess I'm trying to address the public comment that there'd be more impervious space than what is, this comprehensive plan request. There's no certainty in it, and
Yeah.
it's fair to assume
I'm gonna
actually less
bring up-
certainty of,
Yeah, to add some more
impervious
clarity
space.
to your comments, Mr. Egan, I'm going to bring up the preliminary plan. This is not the final plan. This is not before us tonight. But we do ask for a site plan or at least a concept plan when someone is proposing a rezoning. Again, this is not the final plan. It could be reduced by one building. I was told that by the developers. So again, we have a very large green space in the middle. This could be a lot more dense under R5, but it's not being proposed that way. So, there is some appreciable, I guess I'll call it, green space between the buildings, north of the buildings, and certainly in the middle, as you can see, with the potential for one of these buildings.
Go ahead.
Well, I was on the council, that at one time, the city owned some of this land, up until about 3 years ago, Jim, that we bought that, and we sold our parcel because Jim owned the other, and really, neither of us could do anything without one, and so we sold our parcel to Jim, to Mr. Grothman. I believe there was the understanding at that time that this would be developed into single-family and maybe single-family duplex, that it wasn't going to be apartment houses.
No, that is true, absolutely.
That is,
That
when
was
we
Mr.
sold the
Grothman's
land,
plan.
that was the intent from the council, that that's what that property would be. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is right in the middle of residential. There's maybe one or two duplexes around this. Otherwise, it is 100% residential. And I just have a problem with rezoning something when the neighbors don't want it rezoned. It's their property that's going to be affected, not mine. So I struggle with that. Another thing that the city should address with the developer is that lot next to that, where that shaded area right there, the city still owns that. That is a dump. That is when they widened East Hartle Street. The city had to, what they dug out of East Hartle Street was all dump material. They piled it on that lot. And next 4 lots after that, I own. And since that has happened, there's never been a smell that we've recognized. However, I can tell you that when they dug that out, it was terrible. There was a big smell to that. Now, does that happen again in 10 years from now? Does that happen, you know, does it never happen? I don't know. I don't know nothing about dumps. But I would hate to see that come back and the city would get left on the hook because we allowed this to happen, you know. So I just, like I say, I just kind of hang my hat on. This was never the intent when we sold that property to Mr. Grothman. Now, as far as saying we can never build it and make it an unbuildable piece of property, I don't think that's fair to Mr. Grothman. He's invested money in this and whatnot, and to say, you know, I just see that goes to court. If we say, you know, you own it now, but we sold it to you, but you can't put nothing on it. But like I say, it is right in the middle of residential development. There's, you know, other than on the other side of East Hartle Street, there is no commercial development here. No commercial or no apartment houses whatsoever. I'm all for the development. It's not certain that it's in the right spot.
And
Mr. Grothman?
Dennis, you made that comment that it sits in the middle of, on the west, it's duck pond. On the north, it's wetland. On the east, it's wetland. And then somewhat next door, this is vacant land over here. Okay, so that's vacant. That's wetland up there, wetland, wetland, wetland. Commercial, heavy commercial, industrial. And then Forge Plastic Company over here. Usually when you're looking at multifamily areas, you're using a buffer between a residential area and possibly a commercial area. And that's done with planning just routinely. And this is ideal buffer between single family, which is roughly 400 feet away. And these individuals that mentioned their concern, they live over here. Now that creates a buffer. And in order, and again, you said I was looking for property to develop. I didn't say I was gonna do single family. My intention was to get the single family. But single family developments, as you said at one planning commission, you're crazy to go and put single family in there. You're never gonna make your price work. You mentioned that. No, you mentioned for what sales I'd have to sell my lot for and what infrastructure would have to be placed. It wouldn't be a successful situation for me whatsoever. I'm looking at another way of creating a development that the city needs. And this developer in particular has a track record that's phenomenal. They do great work. And this is infill, a buffer between commercial, industrial. I would say industrial, not commercial. I mean, you're industrial, right? Your whole business? Probably. This is a plastics factory right here. Yeah. This is a contractor over here. There's a duplex, and single family over here. Those are going to adjacent, similar single family use or multi-family duplex use that's adjacent to my property. I mean, your comment saying it's in the middle residential is false.
I do believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did want to address one of the concerns about increased traffic on Dorothy Drive. To my understanding, this does not have an access on Dorothy Drive, so people would not, you would not be seeing more vehicles. It would be coming off of Hartle and Albert there, and then it would be a circle. There would not be an access to Dorothy Drive, so you wouldn't have cars coming down there as far as the traffic concerns are there.
That's correct. There are utility connections on Dorothy Drive, but there would not be any through traffic based on the existing site plan.
Go ahead, Hank, first.
I guess, seeing as this specific item is the adjustment to the comprehensive plan, in a perfect world, if we all had crystal balls, we'd make one comprehensive plan and stick to it throughout. Sitting in this position, I've always viewed it as, what if we have to change it, how big of a change is it to the neighborhood? And I see 16.39 acres and a density of, just over 5 units per acre for that plan, with potentially even a reduction in units. At that point, you're getting to single-family density. Honestly, as I hear, I'm not an engineer, but as I hear some of the concerns, which I'm glad that they were brought up, that the impervious area was going to cause more water issues, I think the multifamily plan would actually reduce the amount of impervious space versus putting in putting in roads to individual housing units. I guess I agree that it does seem to fit right in between the transfer from single-family to industrial, and you get to the railroad real quick. So from that perspective, I see it as a fit. But again, getting back to the comprehensive plan, I know it was undeveloped not too long ago. Went to, small, single and two-family housing, but on the acreage, I don't see a big difference in usage.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, as far as Dorothy Drive and the traffic, meeting when it was first presented to us, that was a concern of mine. That we only have one entrance and egress out of there for safety reasons. And I talked to the fire chief today about that, and he said the road going in is going to be 50 feet wide. Plenty for any emergency, if we gotta be in the front and there's an emergency in the back. And that's gonna be the same issue if it's single family or if it's apartments. But he said he has no problem with just having one with that. I don't have any problem with it either.
If I could just point out, the preliminary site plan does show 2 stormwater management facilities here and here. Within the last several years, the DNR has imposed a very stringent stormwater management code upon the city that the city has adopted. And so we do comply with the best practice for stormwater management. And so any proposed development, including this pre-3 development, is going to have to meet that. And so there will be very stringent stormwater management requirements that I have to agree have the high potential of improving the stormwater management of water versus the current condition, because there's nothing stopping it. It's Katie bar the door right now. And this is going to stop and slow, and if there is any release, slowly release it, as opposed to nothing whatsoever. So I think it's important to understand that if this moves ahead.
The way it's laid out right now, this would have to go to the council for approval.
The rezoning would, that is
Rezoning.
correct.
But if it drops down to 72 units, does it have to?
No, the rezoning regardless has to go to the city
The
council.
rezoning has to go to the
The
council.
site plan does not have to go to the city council. However, the rezoning would.
And in terms of what we're looking at for buildings, this would be very similar in the style to what Rolling Woods looks like. So if you're familiar with the Rolling Woods development, it would be very similar to that. And so that is one of, from what I've heard, that's one of the more successful and well-liked complexes in the city. I mean, we haven't had any issues with that. So that is what we're not talking about a 4-story or 5-story building. We're talking very similar to Rolling Woods is what it would look like.
That'll be my last comment, just echoing that. I know we're supposed to look at this in, a microscope and just a comprehensive plan, but I am going to give credit to the developer and what they've done in the city thus far, and say if we're going to do this for somebody, do it, somebody that's proven that they'll do it right rather than waiting around, and at some point, that land will be developed, so.
Yeah, if you want to have a question, you can, I'll allow a question.
How can we put retention ponds where there's already standing water? That's in the floodplain. I have the old map from the last development, and it shows those two retention ponds are in the floodplain. So we're gonna put retention ponds in the floodplain. If you wanna do a retention pond, put it right in the middle of the development so they can deal with the water.
Well, we will review that. Jim, do you want to address that?
I've owned that land for quite a while, probably the last 30 years, like you're saying, in the floodplain and wetland area. This detention basin is high ground, is not wet. It's not ever been wet. Sure, the wetland gets wet, it's flooded. Your basin might get wet. Where this development is going, actually, the land, basically, that land is 15 to 20 feet above the wetland. 15 to 20 feet. That's where the buildings are. And the area you're referring to is high and dry land. And not flood.
All right, go ahead, Hank.
I'll make the motion to approve the amendment to the city's comprehensive plan for parcel 6022.
Boss?
Second.
Second? All right, Steve, call the roll, please.
Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Bachreiner. Foss.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 5, discussion and possible action on zoning map amendment application from pre-3 parcel number 6022.
An application for zoning map amendment has been submitted by Pre-3 to rezone parcel 6022 from the current RT Traditional Neighborhood Zoning District to R5 Large-Scale Multifamily Residential Zoning. This rezoning will facilitate development of Premier Portage Preserve, a 7-building, possibly 6-building development as proposed by Pre-3. The Pre-3 company developed Rolling Woods apartment community on Airport Road, as referenced by the mayor in 2015 and 2016, and it's one of the top 100 multifamily housing entities in the United States. So this is not a Johnny-come-lately developer. This is a very respected developer. It's one of the top 100 developers in the United States of America. So I think that should give us some relief that this is going to be a quality development. The zoning administrator has, in accordance with section 90-471, parent 4, approved the impact statement, and staff do recommend approval of the zoning amendment application as submitted.
Egan?
I'll make the motion to approve the zoning map amendment for, presented by Pre-3 for parcel 6022.
Any further discussion?
Do we have a second to the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will give 2 minutes to the alderperson for District 2, if you'd like to come up to the microphone. I'll allow it.
I'm Shanna Dunahee. I am the 2nd District Alderperson. I grew up in Portage. I moved to East Albert Street, 527 East Albert Street. I walk my dog around Dorothy, off from Hamilton. I walk the area. And you're talking about adding multifamily. You're talking about adding bigger buildings. I know that you said that it's a higher ground. Okay. But I'm not an engineer, all right? But this area here is a lot lower than it. I know that because I've walked residents there are gonna be affected by any kind of, water. I have deer, I have fox, there are turkeys, there are rabbits, there are different wildlife that lives back there. And I can see single-family housing, I can see a couple of duplexes and stuff, but honestly, for me, I don't feel that a giant multifamily complex will be there. The marsh is a beautiful place. I enjoy walking by it. I enjoy having that quiet peace instead of the loud noise of larger areas, larger duplexes. I just wanted to say my piece. I understand in regards to adding people. We need more housing. I understand. My question is, typically, what kind of price is it gonna be on that housing or rent? Don't know. Right now, I know that a lot of the newer places are about between $1,200 to $1,600. And individuals nowadays, especially in Portage, can't afford them.
I do want to keep it to
Yep,
specifically
yep.
the,
But I just wanted to speak my piece. Thank you
Understood.
very much for giving me the time. I enjoy that beautiful area, and I can see little houses back there, a couple of duplexes and stuff. But I just wanted to state that putting multi-buildings back there will ruin the quietness.
again, I want to keep the discussion strictly to the zoning map portion. As far as this body is concerned, the price points are irrelevant. It's just a zoning question. So we had a motion by Egan to adopt, and we had a second by Foss. Any further discussion? All right, Jim, yeah.
Steve, explain to me what's the difference between 4 and 5?
4 and 5, you can put more units.
No.
R4 and
Item 4 and
R5.
item 5.
Oh, item 4 and item 5.
What's the difference?
Well, in order to adopt a zoning map amendment, you need to have congruity with the city comprehensive plan future land use. In other words, the future land use as designated in the city's comprehensive plan has to match what the proposed rezoning is going to be. And if it doesn't, then you got to amend the comprehensive plan future land use to the same thing as what the proposed land use is. Otherwise, it's not going to match. So that is why many times, but not always, the future land use designation matches what the future land use is. Not in this case.
Yeah, and again, this is just a first step, right? If all of a sudden, we have the stormwater treatment plan, or in the management plan comes back and it's not viable, right? It's not like we're gonna do this finalized tonight. This is just a first step. And if there's something that happens, then we can address it and make sure that we can mitigate that. But this is just the first step to allow them to continue with that plan. Any further discussion? No, yeah, well, we have an open motion, and we've had some discussion, so, Mr. Sobiek, can you call the roll?
Yes. Feeney.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Nachreiner.
Aye.
Foss.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 6, discussion possible action on site plan, no, hold on, we already did, right? Is that
Yep. The next one is number
7?
6.
Okay.
The presentation and discussion on Lynn Properties.
Okay, presentation and discussion on Lynn Properties multifamily development concept plans for parcel number 3101.01 Henry Drive Extension, and parcels number 2477, 2478, 2478B, and 2481.01 north of Lennon Street.
Lynn Properties will present concept plans for 2 multifamily developments on these 2 sites, with these preliminary plans intended to illustrate the development potential. The Henry Drive Extension site is parcel 3101.01, which is 7.39 acres. There's 1 egress point via an extension of Henry Drive. The new Pinery Road, north of Lennon Street site, parcels 2477, 2478, 2478 point B, and 2481.01 is a 5.4 acre site. 3 potential ingress egress points are shown, including 2 from New Pinery, as well as an optional connection to Lennon Street. Each site would feature 194 apartment units, in 2 4-story buildings with 97 units each per building. A parking lot as well as basement parking garage are shown for each development. Both sites would require rezoning to R5 large-scale multifamily with a planned PUD submittal and approval due to the number of units, which is over 16 units per acre. So the Lynn property team will present this concept plan to gauge the interest of the Plan Commission. Both market rate apartment developments will offer 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Construction costs on both developments combined is estimated at $48 million. Following the presentation, commissioners will have a chance to answer any questions and engage the developer as well as make any suggestions and recommendations. So no action will be taken on this tonight. It's kind of a give and take to share your thoughts with the proposed development. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Richard Lynn and Mr. Rob Roth to come up and make a presentation on this development.
Good evening, Robert Roth with Roth Professional Solutions here in town, here in Portage. Working with Rick Lynn, Lynn Properties, as introduced. Thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to review this concept with the Plan Commission. It's a great opportunity just to go over at a high level, kind of look in the future a little bit of what, as Steve mentioned, what the development possibilities are, and get your input on that in a manner that isn't a formal approval at this stage. We appreciate that. I had provided a contextual map. Is that available in this? So it's a little bit zoomed out for the city, so you can get a feel for the parcels they're at. Maybe it isn't attached in that package. So this parcel here is what we call the Henry Drive parcel. This parcel has been vacant for decades. But I think we've looked at this parcel. I remember working on this in the mid-2000s with another entity at that time, looking at it. Again, this particular project involves a higher density maximization of the units in this area with buffer to the east, respecting the space of the existing development to the east, extending Henry Drive, handling stormwater management, providing for parking on site, basic multifamily amenities that would be required with such a development. All on site, we believe the site can support that. But as you know, more design needs to happen, more input from your end, work with you through that process. This is an idea what that could look like. The Lennon Street project, as we're calling it, which I think is down the page, has a similar number of units that we're proposing for maximum density in this area. Neighborhood business to the east, MATC to the west. The Rolling Woods project is just off the page to the left. Lower, yep. So there's a perspective. We feel, again, this could be a good fit for this area, maximization of multiple entry and exit points available. And not even including a connection to Lennon Street, although we'd like your input on that. And again, similar features, underground parking, adequate and in excess of what the city ordinance requires, stormwater management, public utilities, and those types of things. Like I said, the actual design of the units will likely vary, once we get into the details on the water storage, the water pressure capacity and delivery for certain units. But, again, aside from specifics on architectural and building parameters, things like that, the idea for both parcels is to get your feel for density and development potential in these areas. So, and again, to elaborate a little bit more on Steve's initial background on the project, we're looking basically at 194 units on each site, probably as a maximum, and immediate tax dollar benefits for the city, the tax impact right away, just under $1 million. And I think that's a big impact. Obviously, that's going to come some time, but to get into the design process and not have a clear understanding of where we can be with that city and zoning, that's why we're here tonight. Work with you on that. Thank you. Or I'll hang on for questions.
Will you be looking for TIF money?
This discussion only, so I'll just tell you, you know, I think it was Kismet, the previous discussion, not that we have to compare exactly, but we just saw a lot of pushback from the community on a, you know, five unit per acre proposal, kind of the proposal. And supposedly that's now being reduced. You know, these two are 26 and 36 units per acre. So, you know, as far as the density question, I feel like that you're probably going to get a lot of pressure from the community on that. I think both of these are zoned commercial. So there again, getting back to the comprehensive plan and what the neighborhood should have expected. I think you'll receive some pressure there. For me personally, and I'd love to hear from others on this, the Lennon Street project, the two access points onto New Pinery Road give me concern. I sure would like to see the city work with developers to eliminate, not add, individual drives onto a split highway at this point in the city's development. Those are the things that popped out. I think they're great properties to be developed for this use, but I think the density is a stretch, and I'd love to see the access change for New Pinery. Go ahead.
I think the density is going to be a little different here as far as the community goes, because we're not putting it in a residential area. You know,
The condos immediately to the right of the condos immediately to the right of the Henry
Well,
Street, one would argue that.
Right, but it isn't single-family residence. You know, the development on East Albert for the Clemens property, you know, we're dealing with single-family development. Development on East Albert and East Hartle, you're dealing with single-family development. It's a little different here, you know, and, you know, yes, we're gonna have to rezone that property, but it isn't like it's a big step of rezoning. You know, it's, they could have some of this in that property, maybe they couldn't have 194 units in there, but they could do something in there without it being rezoned
That's correct.
for what it's zoned now. I think, you know, I wasn't on the last go-around, but I was on 2 times before that in our comprehensive plan. We always figured that that's what was gonna go into this property, you know, from day one. You know, the only residential property we really have is that frontage road. And truth of the matter is, if that was coming to the city today, there wouldn't be residential property in there. It's just that it happened 50 years ago, you know. So, but I know in the meetings that I've been in, as far as comprehensive planning, we've always anticipated something like this was gonna go, was what was the fit to go in there. Whether it was gonna be 194 units, a parcel, I can't answer that because we didn't have no plans, but I just don't think we're gonna get the community kickback on this piece, on this ground here, that we've kinda gotten on the last 2.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the map, because on Henry Street there, you have there's some of those, condos and whatnot on Henry, but where this would be, where they showed to extend Henry Drive, there's nothing there. You got the Yardway site, you have part of a cemetery, you have, some of the larger apartments kind of down behind the Dollar Tree back there. So this isn't the same level as far as the Henry Drive. The only, question I had with the Henry Drive, parcel is there any necessary reason that we have to extend Henry Drive, or could we just do a driveway, and just that way we don't have to have, extending that road and just, stopping it,
I think
right?
we're open to those concepts.
Yep.
Under the TID umbrella, we're open to discussing a minimization of TID resources, for something like a street extension, and using that land area for higher and better purposes, absolutely.
Because the road is kind of a road to nowhere, pardon the phrase, but it ends at the airport, so it's not going anywhere. So to the mayor's point, I think that's, I believe there is water main under there, if I'm not mistaken, but we
There
could
is,
do
yep,
an
you're
easement.
correct.
So, that's
Just one more comment to Mr. Egan. No, I don't want it to become a showstopper, but whatever we can do to not have driveways on New Pine Tree Road. We got enough problems on New Pine Tree Road.
If you could
than this,
flip to that quick.
oh, yeah, right.
You know,
The reason, as an engineer, I thought about that a lot. And this one's closer to the divided portion, but it isn't divided there. This one certainly isn't, but, you have the three options for Leonard Street, here, here.
Yeah.
Wanted to provide space from, Leonard Street, and almost didn't show that connection, thinking that traffic would run through a single-family residential area, if that was their only option, right? So I feel like a connection out on, if we could work something out, increase the safety, doesn't make sure the visibility is there, a connection on New Pioneer would be appropriate, looking at the options, but continue work with Phil on that and others.
Well, if I could point out, this ingress egress point actually currently exists. This is currently in existence, although it is a very low traffic impact, because it basically dead ends and just serves this parcel, the former Johnson Mechanical Building. This, however, would be new, and this extension, if it occurred, would be new. And again, to Mr. Egan's point, it would probably be in the interest of public policy and the good of the city not to extend this to protect the integrity of Lennon
Just
Street.
to make clear, I said the exact opposite. I think it would be bad for public safety to add a driveway serving 194 new units onto New Pinery Road directly across from the school. If we do this, I think the only safe way is to send it down Lennon. Now, I know that that'll upset everyone that lives on Lennon, but to add it to add that traffic to New Pinery, turning left and right directly across from the school, I think it goes against.
Okay, I stand corrected.
The confines of our parcels put us in an awkward position, with respect to, this is school building.
Yep.
Yes. So we'd like to be, we're just outside of the parameter that I think we could offset it, but as an engineer, I'd like to line that up, right? But I can't do. But then not having another way out, if this doesn't exist, is on my mind. Now, if we create some sort of turnarounds and bring it back out, okay, that's always a possibility. Again, it'll probably lessen that density a little bit, but those are the things we have to discuss and look at as we design.
you're gonna have problems with your residents coming out on the New Pinery and wanting to turn left, because they're gonna wait there a long time. I mean, that's just a busy street,
And it's gonna be between 7 and 8 a.m. when the school's letting in.
I mean, it is, our ball diamonds are down there, just everything about it isn't good. To bring more out right in that area. And turning right won't be as big a problem. Turning left where you gotta go through, across 2 lanes of traffic to get to left, it might even be that the city would look at that and say it could be right turn only, that they wouldn't let you turn left there. Which will create another set of problems for you to do that. It's just if there's any, you're in the design phases. If there's any way to eliminate that, or, just, I just.
I was gonna say, is there a way, because I believe that parking lot up there at the top left corner, that driveway, is that in Madison College there?
Yes, that is Madison College.
Because that's coming off Collins, right?
Right, that is correct.
I mean, would there be any way to, I don't know if it's possible to share that driveway with them, or to come in off Collins, because that's a little bit easier to come off of than Pinery, but I'm not sure if that would be possible.
Well, there's stoplights there too, on Collins to New Pinery.
Right, yep.
You know, which helps a lot.
It would be possible if Madison College agreed to it. It could be a shared, you know, but that would be a private party negotiation. Berlin and Madison College.
Rick, didn't Marty own some land in here? Didn't Kavinsky own some of this land at one time? Marty Kavinsky? Yeah, and I think at one time, there was a design to extend Lennon Street, to connect Lennon Street. Yes.
I think an exit to the north with that stoplight would, A, make it more attractive to live in it, and also to be able to live around it.
Yeah. Doesn't Schultz own all that land back there? Schultz, I think, owns that.
Yeah, where the power lines go through, kind of back there, yep.
Do you have a rough idea? Sorry. Do you have a rough makeup of the percentage of each type of one bedroom, two bedroom, like the count for each of those, or not? Or the two? Okay. I think.
Yeah, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we don't have any issue with the way it's really presented on Henry Drive. That all seems fine. I think just trying to figure out the traffic, where it would be going. Would it be going to Collins? Would it be connecting to Lennon? Would it be going to New Pinery? I think that's where there's more discussion, because, you know, if it's people are going to work at 8 o'clock, right as everyone's going to high school, you know, and coming in to Muir and the middle school, that might be a little bit more difficult. But if there's a way to kind of connect that up off Collins by Madison College there, where you're not on New Pinery, I think that would probably be the easiest from a traffic standpoint. Because I do share Dennis's concern about if someone's coming on a New Pinery trying to make a left, I think that would be a hard, there'd be a lot of traffic trying to go across that and making left. But if there's a way to come in off Collins, I think that would be fantastic, or make it an entry only off New Pinery, so you can get a turn lane and.
Your residents heading north and trying to get into that southern entrance. There's cars backed up to that far on the stoplights a lot of the time that they'll be leaving and coming.
Keep in mind, there'll be a given amount of people leaving in the morning that won't be working in Portage. You know, they'll be leaving the city. And Collins Street, they can go out to Airport Road and get out of the city that way. They don't even have to, you know, which will be a big advantage, that they would never have to get onto New Pinery Road. You know, which, that helps us.
I was just gonna say, so working with a lot of apartment developments, it's the exact same thing. It's like we usually have a concern with traffic, and everyone's thinking, oh, everyone's leaving at 9 or 8 or whatever, you know, you have to go to pick up your kid or to drop off your kids or to go to work, but it's not always the case. And while I agree with the traffic on New Pinery being definitely an issue for people turning in there, I think that the amount of traffic that's going to be coming in and out is probably significantly less than what we're envisioning on a day-to-day basis.
Switching over to the Henry Drive site, four-story building with us saving the airport and it being immediately adjacent, there's no height restrictions that we're running into there if we had to?
They would have to abide by FAA standards there. Obviously, just being in the concept development stage, we don't know the actual height of that, to where we, they would actually have to go through based on the kind of distance away from the runway, that you are significant, you have some significant height advantages, but it would absolutely. You have one comment also, Rob, on the access to the Henry Drive location. I know, speaking with the fire chief on this, we would probably require some secondary easement or some secondary egress outside of the parking lot, because your total length coming in and around exceeds 500 feet for their apparatus to come into. So they would require something to either come back down and around this way or some sort of turnaround throughout that parking
Yeah, I think that the Henry Drive, I don't think there will be too much of a concern about neighbors or anything like that. I think that looks, as long as it's not anything that conflicts with the airport, I think the Henry Drive section should be fine, because I know Manchester Place, I know there's right along Airport Road there, there's some two-story, condos there already as is. And so I don't see that being a problem. I just think that trying to figure out the traffic onto New Pinery or Collins, or how that would look like, I think is the one place where we're trying to figure out from here. But I also am curious to Lydia's point too, is if we have a total number of, how many cars would be in and out, right? Because if we're looking at 197 units, if you figure 2 cars, that's about 400 cars per day, right? So trying to think of, some people, not everyone's gonna be leaving at the same time, but you're probably looking at an additional 300 cars going in and out of there. But I'm not entirely sure unless we have a breakdown. That's, I think, the one place where there's a little bit of the New Pinery, how, where all that would be in terms of traffic.
We're certainly willing to put the energy into the other options that were mentioned. West, it looks favorable at 30,000 feet. We'll see if we can work out more with it.
Oh, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong, but I guess I'll differ with the mayor. I think you will, at 26 and 36 units per acre and 4 stories, I think, in the city of Portage, you will get some pushback for the density, but that's just a forewarning. That's what this meeting's for.
On the New Pinery one, yeah, I think, if you're going to Lennon, you probably will, but I don't think offhand.
Okay. And protocol-wise, are we?
Yeah, so the next plan would be, I would say, come back and maybe a preliminary site plan based on this meeting with staff and with the mayor, and then we can schedule action on a site plan. And rezoning along with that, concurrent.
This is a
Well, I think you
discussion.
heard caution. I think you did hear caution. I don't want to speak for the commission, but I think you did hear a cautionary note on the density.
On the New Pinery
On the New
side,
Pinery
not on the
side
Henry
of it,
side. The
yeah.
the Henry side, should be fine.
No, the number of units, yeah, I think the feeling is, 196 units is a little too dense. That's what I heard. Well, not only traffic, but just the number of people in that development. And I understand that, I'm just interpreting what I heard today from.
So there's no interpretation. As one committee member, I think that, again, 26 and 36 units per acre and 4 stories will receive some pushback from the community, and we'll have that portion of the meeting, you know, when the actual, and we'll have the public hearing just like we did for the project before you in the agenda at that time. But this is just to forewarn and try to expedite the process.
Yeah, and I guess I would also like to add at this point that because this does exceed the zoning limitation of R5, this would have to be a planned unit development, which takes longer to get approved. There's a public hearing process on the site plan, number 1, and number 2. It must be approved by the city council as well as the plan commission. Whereas a regular site plan that complies with zoning does not have to be approved by the city council. It does not have a public hearing. So when you do have this high density, you're gonna have more scrutiny, and more hoops to jump through. So something to think about.
I think the Henry Drive part, I think is fine. The density off New Pinery, I do agree will probably get some more pushback. If that gets dropped down a little bit, I think, you know, to a certain extent, if we're talking, you know, 60 to 100 rather than 200, that might be, that would probably get less pushback, but the Henry Drive portion, I think, is probably fine as is. I don't think you'll get as much pushback off the Henry Drive. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. That's true.
Yeah, I'd probably say, I think the ballpark, I think, would probably be on the New Pinery one. The lowest that you can do while making it economically viable is probably the way I'd probably look at it from your perspective. The Henry Drive portion, I think you're probably, yeah, go ahead.
Just make a comment. If you were paying any attention to the public hearing we had before you, we didn't have one person speak for that development, and it passed this commission. So when they talk about having pushback, you know, no, I'm not saying that to you, Rick, I'm just saying, we had several people speak against it, yet we approved it. So, you know, how much pushback? I'm just saying that I don't believe there's going to be the pushback that these guys are thinking there is, but I'll eat my words if there is.
Well, that's,
I think that some of the previous properties that we've looked at could be residential development. That doesn't have to be apartments. I think you're smoking something if you think this piece of property is gonna be residential development ever in the city of Portage. It'll never happen. You know, on Lennon Street or whatnot, number one, there's duplexes and condos, but there's no single-family residential per se, R1 in that area now, other than that frontage road. That's exactly right, you know, so I think, But that isn't necessarily the case on some of the other parcels we've looked at in the last couple months. There could be that kind of development.
Yep.
There's not gonna be this kind of development on that.
Yeah, I think we're generally, all in favor. I think that that's generally the vibe I get, but unless anyone has any other serious differences, I think we should move on to number 8, discussion and possible action on CSM for Blau.
I think you gotta go 7
Oh, wait,
first, Matt.
7,
That's Blau, you're right.
7 for Blau.
right, yeah.
There's no action on the Lynn one. So, the Blau Family Chiropractic Clinic has submitted a CSM to combine parcels 2490.04 and 2512.04. That creates one new lot, as you can see, Lot 1 here. And we discussed this when we approved the parking lot plan at the last meeting. So this newly configured parcel does comply with the bulk zoning regulations for the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. And approval of this CSM, as we know, will facilitate the development of the new parking lot on the north side of the Blau Family Clinic. City staff recommend approval of this proposal.
Reiner.
I'll make a motion to approve the CSM for Blau Family Chiropractic, 641.
Egan.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Nachreiner. Foss.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 9, discussion possible action on CSM for Portage High School.
So Portage High School has submitted a CSM to combine the newly annexed parcels 6006, 6035, 6034, 6033, 6032, 6031, 6030, 6029, creating one new parcel, Lot 1, that encompasses 50.79 acres. The newly configured parcel complies with the bulk zoning regulation for the zoning district. So approval of this CSM will facilitate construction of the high school's new aquatic center and recreational complex building addition and parking lot. That was discussed and approved at the last plan commission meeting. Staff does recommend approval.
Egan.
I make the motion to approve the CSM from the Portage Community School District as presented.
Reiner. Second. All right, any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Nachreiner. Foss.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 10, discussion and possible action of extraterritorial land division N7921 Henry Road, Town of Fort Winnebago.
Michael and Jamie Lothy have submitted this land division by CSM for a residential parcel at 7929 Henry Road in the town of Fort Winnebago. This proposed land division creates a new single-family lot. Lot 2, as you can see, encompassing, Lot 2 encompasses 1.78 acres, which is being subdivided from the entire lot. So basically, they're creating a newly configured Lot 1 with an existing single-family home, and then Lot 2 with none. So basically, that is what we're looking at here. State law allows us to review this as a plan commission, and we can kind of veto it if it has any negative impact on the city. It's right outside, adjacent to the city limits. City staff recommend approval of it. We see no negative impact on the city. For all we know, in our lifetimes, this all could be annexed to. So that's another reason to review this. But at the most, it creates one new single-family home.
Reiner.
They're not asking for any utilities from the city.
No, not at all, no.
I'll make a motion to approve the CSM for the land division on Henry Road.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Who's the second on that? Egan. Okay, thank you. Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Nachreiner. Foss.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Number 11, discussion and possible action on site plan for Moss Field Score Box.
This is from the Park and Recreation Department, and they have submitted a site plan for a youth press box at Moss Field located on Townsend Street. The youth press box measuring 14 feet by 18.2 feet, which is the first floor footprint. It will be located behind home plate, behind the fence. It's a two-story structure with steps that will measure 19 feet, 1.25 in height. And staff recommend approval of it.
Knockreiner.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan for the Moss Field. This is for the third field that we put in 3-4 years ago. There's never been a press box put in for that field, and they're pretty much going to match the other.
Right.
Every field will have their own.
All right, Foss with a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Knockreiner. Foss. Motion carries.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, second by Knockreiner. Call the roll, please.
Feeny.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Knockreiner. Foss. Motion carries.